Nobody warns you that somewhere around your 30th thousand dollar, your entire brain quietly changes teams.
Most people picture wealth as a straight staircase, $1 up, one step closer, forever. Hit 10,000, you're a tenth of the way to 100 grand.
Hit 20, you're a fifth there. Clean, tidy, predictable math, except that math is lying to you.
It flattens a moment that is anything but flat, the moment somewhere past 20, 5, 28, $30,000, when saving quietly stops being the goal and starts being the fuel, and
almost nobody sees it coming until it's already happened to them. I'm going to call this the threshold, because that's really what $30,000 is.
Not a bigger pile, a different room. On one side of that door, you're guarding what little you have.
On the other side, something in you flips and you start building instead of bracing.
before we get into why that flip happens, if you're the kind of person who wants to actually understand money instead of just white knuckling your way through it, stick around. This channel Winds
of Thought exists for exactly that. And if this changes how you see your own number, a like tells me to keep making these.
So let's walk through what the climb actually feels like, because most people never stop to notice it while they are in it, because the version of you at $5,000 is almost a different
person than the version at 30.
At 5,000 saved, you're still doing that morning ritual nobody talks about, the quick, half-conscious check of your balance before your feet even hit the floor.
Rent is a live wire. A flat tire is a crisis, not an inconvenience. Every choice carries weight because there's no cushion underneath it. 10,000 loosens something, not everything but something. You sleep a little deeper. A busted water heater stops being a 5-alarm fire and becomes an annoyance you can actually pay for.
Experts have a name for this stage, the starter cushion. It's real, it matters, and it is still just the beginning of a much longer story.
Relief is not the same thing as freedom. It just feels like it at first. 20,000 is where people start to feel clever.
You're not merely surviving anymore, you're plotting. Maybe you could actually leave that job that's been quietly draining you.
Maybe your retirement account stops being an abstract idea and becomes a real line item. This is the stage where most people exhale, look around, and think, I've basically figured this out.
Here's the problem with that thought. Because the story most people tell themselves about 30,000 is almost exactly backwards.
They assume the next $10,000 just repeats 20, a slightly nicer trip, a little more breathing room.
Same movie, longer runtime. That is not remotely what happens. $30,000 isn't more of the same feeling. It's a different physics entirely.
This is where compounding stops being a formula in the back of a textbook and starts becoming something you can actually watch happen to your own money.
This is where you stop managing cash out of emotion and start managing it like a strategist. Picture your money less like a pile in a vault and more like an orchard.
For years, you've been planting one seed at a time, watering carefully, terrified a single storm will wipe out the whole row.
But at 30,000, some of those trees are old enough to bear fruit on their own without you standing over them every single day.
Some trees stand guard holding the fence line, your emergency reserve. Others exist purely to produce more fruit, your investments, quietly working while you sleep.
A few are scouts, planted in riskier soil, watching for the next opportunity worth chasing. And once you see money this way, you can never quite unsee it.
This isn't just a nice metaphor for a thumbnail, there's actual behavioral science behind it. Researchers describe it as moving from a scarcity mindset into an abundance mindset.
Below the threshold, your brain runs on fear. Can I afford this? Above it, the question quietly rewrites itself into, is this the smartest use of what I have?
Same $100, completely different question, completely different life. Scarcity asks if you can afford it.
Abundance asks if it's worth it. And here's exactly where most people trip.
They assume the threshold is permission to finally spend a nicer car, a bigger apartment, proof to everyone watching that they've made it.
That's not wrong, exactly. It's just thinking like someone who has money instead of someone who builds it. And the difference between those two people 5 years from now is enormous.
The ones who actually understand this stage stop playing defense and start playing offense. Instead of hoarding, they position.
Instead of white, knuckling every purchase, they take calculated swings they simply couldn't afford to take before.
At this stage, the door opens to real diversification, a slice into retirement, a slice into index funds, a slice into yourself through a course or a certification that quietly doubles what you're
worth per hour. Even a side project stops feeling like a gamble you can't survive and starts feeling like an experiment you can afford to run.
But the real separator, the thing that actually splits the wealth, builders from the comfortable savers, is this. At the threshold, you stop chasing goals and start building systems.
Instead of white, knuckling a savings target, you build machinery that saves and invests without your daily supervision.
Instead of hoping for a raise, you start stacking skills and relationships and small assets that quietly earn whether you're working, resting, or scrolling your phone at midnight.
Some people call this the momentum engine, and once it starts turning, it is remarkably hard to stop.
Here's the trap almost everyone falls into, though. Right at the exact moment, they're finally in position to make real progress.
They treat the threshold like a finish line instead of a starting gun. They finally feel steady, so they ease off the gas.
They stop reading, stop learning, stop taking any risk at all, call it the comfort plateau, the place where good savers quietly stop becoming wealth builders.
It's like reaching base camp and deciding the view is good enough to turn around. You were never actually at the summit.
You are only just now in position to attempt it. There's a second superpower that shows up right around the same number, and almost nobody names it directly, the ability to say no.
Picture a job offer landing in your inbox when you have $300 to your name versus when you have $30,000.
With nothing behind you, you take almost anything and call it gratitude.
With something behind you, you suddenly start asking better questions. What's the growth path here? What's the culture actually like? Do I even want these people in my life 40 hours a week? Desperation is the most expensive thing you'll ever spend without noticing. Say no to the manager who makes your stomach hurt on Sunday nights. Say no to the opportunity that looks impressive on paper but feels wrong the moment you sit with it. And strangely, the more comfortable you get with walking away, the sharper you get at recognizing what's actually worth staying for, and that shift alone changes almost every decision that comes.
After it, something else changes quietly here too, how the people around you treat you. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse.
Just different. Some will start asking for advice, flattering right up until you realize they want your results without your years of discipline.
Others go a little strange around the topic of money altogether. My advice, don't become the person who brings up your balance at every dinner, but don't shrink yourself to make anyone else comfortable either. You earned the discipline that got you here, and that same discipline is exactly what carries you forward.
Let's talk about the spending trap specifically, because it quietly wrecks more people at this stage than almost anything else, and your brain will absolutely try to talk you out of your own.
Progress at 10,000, dropping $1,000 on a course feels reckless. At 20, it still feels risky.
But at 30, the question flips entirely. Will this skill hand back more than $1,000 over time? If yes, it stops being an expense and becomes an investment. Hoarders sit on cash because they're terrified of losing it.
Builders deploy it because they understand the real danger was never losing money. It was wasting the window while it was open.
Consider two people standing at the exact same number. One takes 20,000 of it and drives off the lot in something shiny, payments quietly eating half of every future paycheck.
The other takes that same 20,000 and spreads it across a diversified portfolio and lets it sit.
5 years later, the car is worth a fraction of what it cost. The portfolio is worth considerably more than it started with.
Same starting line, wildly different finish, and the difference was never luck. It was one single decision made once. Let's slow down on that orchard idea for a second, because it explains something most money advice skips entirely: why the exact same dollar amount feels so different depending on how it's arranged.
Because it's never really about how much you have, it's about what each part of it is doing.
$10,000 sitting in one undivided lump feels fragile, like a single wall holding back a flood.
Split that same 10,000 into 3 roles: reserve, growth, and opportunity, and something strange happens psychologically.
It stops feeling like one fragile thing and starts feeling like a small, functioning system. The reserve dollars aren't there to grow, they're there to guard.
The growth dollars aren't there to protect you tomorrow. They're there to multiply over years you probably won't think about often.
And the opportunity dollars exist purely so that when something rare shows up, a friend's business, a course that could double your rate, a city with better prospects, you're not scrambling to
Find the money. You already set it aside on purpose. This is also where most people quietly sabotage their own progress without realizing it.
They treat every dollar the same, so every decision becomes an argument between fear and desire, with no third option.
Should I invest this or keep it safe? Should I spend this or save it? When money has no assigned role, every choice reopens the same exhausting debate.
When money has a job, most of that internal argument simply disappears. The reserve dollars were never going to be invested, and the growth dollars were never going to be spent on a whim, because
you decided that months ago, back when your head was clear. Decide once while you're calm, and you won't have to decide again while you're tempted.
There's a quieter version of this shift too, one that shows up in how you handle bad news.
A car dies below the threshold, and it's a scramble. Which credit card, which relative, which corner to cut this month?
A car dies above it, and it becomes something closer to a spreadsheet problem: repair or replace, cash or financing.
What's the smarter 5-year math? The event is identical. The emotional temperature around it is not.
None of this happens automatically, by the way, and that's worth saying plainly, because it's the part most videos on this topic conveniently skip, because nobody crosses this threshold by
accident, and almost nobody does it without a few uncomfortable months first.
Getting to $30,000 usually means saying no to things you actually wanted more than once, while people around you said yes without a second thought. It means a stretch of months that felt boring, even a little lonely, where the payoff was invisible and the sacrifice was not. That's exactly why the number matters as proof, not just as a balance. You didn't just accumulate currency, you rehearsed a kind of discipline that most people never build any real evidence for. There's one more shift that catches almost everyone off guard, and it has nothing to do with dollars at all. It's about time. If you earn $50 an hour, spending 2 hours hunting for a $20 discount stops making mathematical sense. That sounds obvious once someone says it out loud, but almost nobody actually lives it. Past the threshold, you start optimizing for time and convenience, not just for the lowest price tag. Your time has a price now. Start spending your money like you actually know it, and underneath all of it sits something even bigger than the money itself: proof. Reaching $30,000 proves to nobody but you that you can choose the long game over the easy one, again and again, even when it's boring, even when everyone around you is spending freely and you're not. That proof doesn't just sit quietly in a savings account. It leaks into every other hard thing in your life. If you can build this, maybe you can finally get in shape, or learn that language, or write the thing you've been putting off for years.
Psychologists call this a positive feedback loop, one win making the next win easier to believe in.
Before we close this out, let's talk about the number that comes after this one, because the threshold isn't a one-time event. It's a pattern that repeats at every stage of building real wealth.
And once you understand the pattern, you can spot it coming from a mile away every single time. The same emotional arc that happens at 30,000 happens again, quieter, at 100,000.
Again at $250,000. Again, the first time your investments earn more in a year than your salary does.
Each time, there's a stretch of discomfort, a plateau where it feels like nothing is moving, and then a threshold where something clicks and the whole system seems to accelerate on its own.
People who reach real financial freedom aren't the ones who avoided the plateau. They're the ones who recognized it for what it was and kept moving through it anyway.
Here's the part that should actually change how you think about your own number today, whatever it is.
If you're below the threshold, the version of you on the other side of that door is not a different person with different luck. It's the same person with a few more months of the same boring.
Discipline stacked on top. If you're already past it, the next door works exactly the same way, just with bigger numbers attached to it.
The door never changes shape, only the number on it does. So if you're sitting at 15 or 20,000 right now thinking you're nearly finished, you're not finished.
You're barely getting warmed up. And if you're nowhere close to 30,000 yet, don't let that discourage you for 1 second.
Every single dollar you choose to save is a vote for the person you're quietly becoming, long before it shows up as a number on a screen, because the real transformation was never about the balance.
At all, the threshold was never really about the money. It's about the version of you standing on the other side of that door.
And once you've walked through it, there's no talking yourself into thinking small again. $30,000 isn't your finish line. It's the door you didn't know you'd already opened.
If this reframed how you see your own number, hit like. Subscribe to Winds of Thought. And tell me in the comments which stage are you standing in right now.